Frankenstein, Volume 3, Chapter 3. I sat one evening in my laboratory. The sun had set, and the moon was just rising from the sea. I had not sufficient light for my employment, and I remained idle, in a pause of consideration of whether I should leave my labor for the night, or hasten its conclusion by an unremitting attention to it. 3 years before, I was engaged in the same manner, and had created a fiend whose unparalleled barbarity had desolated my heart and filled it forever with a bitterness remorse. I was now about to form another being, of whose dispositions I was alike ignorant. She might become 10,000 times more malignant than her mate and delight for its own sake in murder and wretchedness. He had sworn to quit the neighborhood of mine and man, and hide himself in deserts, but she had not. And she, who in all probability was to become a thinking and reasoning animal, might refuse to comply with a compact made before her creation. They might even hate each other. The creature who already lived loathed his own deformity, and might he not conceive a greater abhorrence for it when it came before his eyes in the female form? She also might turn with disgust from him to the superior beauty of man. She might quit him, and he be again alone, exasperated by the fresh provocation of being deserted by one of his own species. Even if they were to leave Europe and inhabit the deserts of the New World, yet one of the first results of those sympathies for which the demon thirsted would be children, and a race of devils would be propagated upon the earth. Had I a right for my own benefit to inflict this curse upon everlasting generations? The wickedness of my promise burst upon me. I trembled, and my heart filled within me, when on looking up I saw, by the light of the moon, the demon at the casement. A ghastly grin wrinkled his lips as he gazed on me. Yes, he had followed me in my travels. He had loitered in forests, hid himself in caves, or taken refuge in wide and deserts, heaths, and he now came to mark my progress and claim the fulfillment of my promise. The wretch saw me destroy the creature on whose future existence he depended for happiness, and with a howl of devilish despair and revenge, withdrew. I left the room, and locking the door, made a solemn vow in my own heart never to resume my labors. Several hours passed, and I remained near my window, gazing on the sea. It was almost motionless, for the winds were hushed, and all nature reposed under the eye of the quiet moon. I felt the silence, although I was hardly conscious of its extreme profundity, until my ear was suddenly arrested by the paddling of oars near the shore, and a person landed close to my house. In a few minutes after, I heard the creaking of my door, as if someone endeavored to open it softly. I trembled from head to foot. I was overcome by the sensation of helplessness so often felt in frightful dreams, when you in vain endeavor to fly from an impending danger, and was rooted to the spot. Presently I heard the sound of footsteps along the passage. The door opened, and the wretch whom I dreaded appeared. Shutting the door, he approached me and said in a smothered voice, "You have destroyed the work which you began. Which is it that you intend? Do you dare to break your promise? I have endured toil and misery, incalculable fatigue, and cold and hunger. Do you dare destroy my hopes? Begone! I do break my promise. Never will I create another like yourself, equal in deformity and wickedness. You believe yourself miserable, but I can make you so wretched that the light of day will be hateful to you. You are my creator, but I am your master. Obey. The hour of my weakness is past, and the period of your power is arrived. Your threats cannot move me to do an act of wickedness. Shall I in cool blood get loose upon the earth a demon whose delight is in death and wretchedness? Be gone! Your hours will pass in dread and misery, and soon the bolt will fall which may ravish from your happiness forever. Are you to be happy while I grovel in the intensity of my wretchedness? Beware, for I am fearless. You shall repent of the injuries you inflict." I go, but I shall be with you on your wedding night. All was again silent, but his words rung in my ears. Why had I not followed him and closed with him in mortal strife? I shuddered to think who might be the next victim, sacrificed to his insatiate revenge. And then I thought again of his words, I shall be with you on your wedding night. In that hour, I should die and at once satisfy and extinguish his malice. The next morning, at daybreak, I summoned sufficient courage and unlocked the door of my laboratory. The remains of the half finished creature I had destroyed lay scattered on the floor, and I almost felt as if I had mangled the living flesh of a human being. With trembling hand, I conveyed the instruments out of the room, but I reflected that I ought not to leave the relics of my work to excite the horror and suspicion of the peasants, and I accordingly put them in a basket with a great quantity of stones, and laying them upon, determined to throw them into the sea that very night. Between 2 and 3 in the morning, the moon rose, and I, then putting the basket aboard a little skiff, sailed out of about 4 miles from the shore. The scene was perfectly solitary. I took advantage of the darkness and cast my basket into the sea. I listened to the gurgling sound as it sunk and stretched myself at the bottom of the boat. I heard the sound of the boat as its keel cut through the waves. The murmur lulled me, and in a short time I slept soundly. I do not know how long I remained in the situation, but when I awoke, I found the sun had already mounted considerably. The waves continually threatened the safety of my little skiff. I found that the wind must have driven me far from the coast from which I had embarked. I had already been out many hours and felt the torment of a burning thirst, a prelude to my other sufferings. I looked upon the sea. It was to be my grave. Fiend, your task is already fulfilled. Some hours passed thus, but by degrees, as the sun declined toward the horizon, the wind died away into a gentle breeze, and the sea became free from breakers. But these gave place to a heavy swell. I felt sick and hardly able to hold the rudder, when suddenly I saw a line of high land towards the south. How mutable are our feelings, and how strange is the clinging love we have of life even in the excess of misery. I easily perceived the traces of cultivation and found myself suddenly transported back to the neighborhood of a civilized man. As I was occupied in fixing the boat, several people crowded towards the spot. They seemed very much surprised at my appearance, but instead of offering me any assistance, whispered together with gestures that at any other time might have produced in me a slight sensation of alarm. My good friends, will you be so kind as to tell me the name of this town and inform me where I am? You will know that soon enough. Maybe I'll come to a place that will not prove much to your taste, but you will not be consulted as to your quarters, I promise. Why do you answer me so roughly? Surely it is not the custom of Englishmen to receive strangers so inhospitably. I don't know what the custom of the English may be, but it is the custom of the Irish to hate villains. Come, sir, you must follow me to Mr. Kirwin's to give an account of yourself. Who is Mr. Kirwin? Mr. Kirwin is a magistrate, and you are to give an account of the death of a gentleman who was found murdered here last night. The answer startled me, but I presently recovered myself. I was innocent, that could easily be proved. Accordingly, I followed my conductor in silence and was led to one of the best houses in the town. Little did I then expect the calamity that was in a few moments to overwhelm me and extinguish in horror and despair all fear of ignominy or death.